Grief and loss of a loved one can cause complicated feelings and emotions. Jordan Buckner from Memorial Mortuaries and Cemeteries is here to show us and tell us more about how to educate families on the importance of proper grieving. Jordan, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Obviously, there's grief when you lose someone, but there's something also called complicated grief. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so complicated grief comes in two parts. The first part of complicated grief is our intense emotions and intense feelings of grief that are abnormal and unhealthy. So feelings of depression, intense feelings of depression, loss, maybe even suicidal thoughts. And then the second component of complicated grief is the extended duration of those symptoms and feelings that gets to a point where, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road and you're still having those feelings and symptoms is really an unhealthy grieving process.
Is there a reason that happens to some people and not others?
Yeah, there's lots of factors that go into what complicated grief is, but the one that we notice is when people elect to try to avoid that grief in the beginning, maybe by not having a funeral, not having a viewing when they lose a loved one, definitely leads to them avoiding and delaying going through the grief process and the reconciliation needs of grief and mourning.
It is so hard because, and you were telling us this, and I feel like it's so true, we're a grief-avoiding culture.
Yeah.
We want to avoid it because it's hard to accept and to really deal with it, isn't it?
Exactly. We want to delay that pain as long as possible, and so our mind tells us to avoid it. And unfortunately, over the years, society has made it easier to avoid and delay that grief. And so that's why I'm here. I want to talk to people about why going through the grieving process, while it's painful in the beginning, leads to a healthier grief outcome in the end.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that process. There's several steps in order to really reconcile, some of the things that you're going through. The first one is to just simply acknowledge the reality of death.
Yep, you need to acknowledge the reality of the death, and that's where the viewing can help, being able to see your loved one after they've passed away. You need to embrace the pain of the loss and be okay with being sad and going through that pain.
That's so hard for people to do, but you say that's a very important step.
Very important. Yeah.
It's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. It's okay to grieve.
Exactly. Exactly. And then following through with that, you need to remember and honor the life of your loved one. And you're searching for meaning, you're developing a new identity, and then really getting that support from your community of extended family and friends, in the immediate days after the death is crucial as well to that
Well, and then
grieving
even
process.
after that, I feel like my family, we find so much peace in continuing to remember years down the road, right?
Yeah,
doing fun traditions in their honor or finding other ways to memorialize them. I love that you have a seminar, and it's coming up on March 12th at the Salt Lake Community College Jordan campus. And it's going to be super, super neat because you have someone really speaking to this for professionals and even members of the public. Is that right?
That's correct. That's correct. His name is Dr. Alan Wolfelt, and he is a nationally renowned grief counselor and author from the University of Colorado. And he goes out and travels across the country giving workshops and seminars on grief and healing. So our seminar on the 12th is for the general public, and it's specifically for people who maybe in the last 6 months to a year or so have lost a loved one, and it will go through and help them kind of talk about these reconciliation needs of mourning. And then our second seminar, which is on the 13th, is more for professionals in the caregiving industry. So, hospice workers, social workers, nurses, things like that. It's tailored to help them help their clients and patients as they're dealing with the loss of a loved one, recognize the symptoms of complicated grief and how to work through with their patients those issues.
You can see the information on your screen, March 12th and 13th, different locations, but you can RSVP by calling 801-262-4631. We're going to put all the information on our website too, so if this is something you're dealing with or think that you can help with, then all the information.
We should also mention there's
a
deal that you're offering for our viewers, 10% off for pre-planned funeral services.
Yep, so we'll provide a 10% discount on pre-planned funeral services or cemetery services if you just mention this segment when you come in and meet with one of our counselors.
Which is nice to plan ahead anyway.
Exactly.
I think that's nice for your loved ones too. Jordan, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on the
we
show.
appreciate you being here. Coming up next, everybody, how to say